here. Today I want to color this 24 by 36 inch piece on canvas. I call this piece Pebbles at 27 for obvious reasons. I've colored this image before with oils on photo paper, and this is going to be acrylics on canvas. Let's start with some acrylic medium, pouring it on my palette here, and some phthalo blue. So I'll start with coloring the big rock in the front here. So I'm just mixing in a little bit of phthalo blue into the mix, into the acrylic medium. Phthalo blue is a very strong color, and actually when I started doing this was already too much. I thought this was too saturated. So I will add a little bit more acrylic medium into the mix to thin it out a little bit more. And that should do it. So there's a little thinner, a little less color, which I thought was more appropriate for this big granite rock that's here sticking out of the beach. So this is at South Carlsbad State Beach, near Lifeguard Tower 27, just north of it. I love these permanent lifeguard towers. They've been here for decades. This big granite rock here caught my eye, and it worked well by doing like composing it as a vertical portrait format with the tower in the back, the rock in the front, a lot of pebbles. There's always a lot of pebbles at this beach, and the ocean on the right. I believe the color of this rock was really had this blue tint to it. I'm kind of following that. Later on I will add a little bit of a burnt sienna to it, just to break up the one color a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color all the pebbles, do a variety of colors, not just one color, not just blue or just a little brown, but a little bit of everything. The sand in between, I'm going to do that with burnt sienna, which is a color which I use a lot. So now I start adding some color to the pebbles on the beach here. I like this blue. It works well. So these pebbles really have these colors. Maybe not as saturated as I'm doing it here, but there's quite a variety in colors of these pebbles on the beach. This beach is also known as Ponto Beach. So that's North Ponto where there's a parking lot, and at South Ponto there's a parking lot. So the brush I'm using is only like 1/4 of an inch. It's a flat brush. It's soft because this acrylic and the medium together is really very liquidy. So a very soft brush will do. And I'm not really following the real colors. I probably have an original color photo somewhere, but I'm just randomly adding blue to all these pebbles here, including the bigger rocks that are also in the back here, which I put here to protect the bluffs against the ocean at the high tide. When it's high tide, actually the waves will crash into the bluffs and into the tower. There are also stairs behind this lifeguard tower, and a lot of rocks have been put there to protect them from the ocean. Sometimes when I color this, I also vary it a little bit for the big rocks, add some browns to it, but in this case I'm doing it all blue. I have colored this image before, many times before actually, but there's also a video on my YouTube channel where I colored, let's see, maybe it was 16 by 24 inches, and I did it on photo paper. And then I used Marshall photo oils. So I add a little bit of yellow to the blue mix, which gives a little bit of an aquamarine color, which I like for this tower. I think originally in the video I just mentioned I added the regular blue to the tower. I have to look again, I don't remember, but I like this color too. Actually, some of these towers do have this aquamarine color. Don't believe Tower 27 does, but there's a bunch of others that might have this. I love clouds. You can see a lot of my work has clouds in it. So I think I shot this back in 2011, and I went just before or just after a storm. With acrylics on canvas, you have to be a little bit more careful, as you don't want to go over the lines, really, as a matter of speaking. With Marshall photo oils on photo paper, that's not that big of a deal because you can easily remove it. This is a little bit harder. This is tough to remove, if not at all. Like it goes into the canvas. Of course, you could paint over it afterwards with like grays or whites, depending on where you are. But that's gonna be a pain, and it's hard to do, especially when you have a textured background like the clouds here behind the tower. You want to do this as precisely as you can. So I'm still using that small brush to add the color to the tower. And since I have made this aquamarine now, I'm also going to use that to add this to some of the other pebbles. So now we have already a mix of two types of blues for the pebbles on the beach. And again, I'm just randomly picking the pebbles where I want to add this color to. I'm also using it for the ocean. So I'm adding that aquamarine that's now on the tower, some of the pebbles, and also in the ocean. Again, I'm doing it very carefully. You might want to consider, and sometimes I do that, to tape off the horizon with a masking tape. In this case, the length of the horizon is not that large, and it's not that hard to stay on the ocean. So I just went ahead and colored it without masking tape. So it's time for the next color. It's burnt sienna. I'm going to use this for all of the sand, the vegetation in the back on the bluffs, and then also for some of the pebbles. And as I mentioned earlier, also I'll add a little bit of that brown, that burnt sienna, to the big rock in the front. But I'm starting with the sand on the beach here. This works nice, having like the cool tones of the pebbles and the warmer tones of the sand with this light brown, orangey brown. You can see the photo is really starting to change now, being from pure black and white to having a couple of colors in here already. And especially now these large surfaces, the browns start to make the photo, the hand-colored photo. You have to be a little bit careful doing acrylics on canvas, because if you wipe too many times over one spot, over one area, you will start to wipe off the ink from the inkjet on the canvas. So the rock is done now. Still finishing up a little bit of sand on the beach. I'm covering a few pebbles already. I will add a little bit more of that burnt sienna from the paint on the palette to the mix with the acrylic medium. And so now I'm adding a little bit more saturated burnt sienna to the pebbles on the beach, just to make them like stand out a little bit more from that same color that's on the sand. But it will stand out because it's now a little bit more saturated. A few dabs in the back here. It's even hard to distinguish all the individual pebbles in the back, but so I'm just putting some blobs on here and there. I'm also going over some of the blue pebbles I did earlier. It kind of mixes. There's a little bit of kelp between the rocks in the distance there too, and later I will add even more burnt sienna into that mix, so we get an even more saturated brown. So now it's time for the bluffs and the vegetation on the bluffs. I think sometimes I add a little bit of green here too, but I thought in this case here the light brown was good for the background here. Probably could have stopped here with these colors, perhaps even leaving some of the pebbles just gray, but I felt like it needs a little bit more. Now we just have pretty much blue and some variations of blue and light brown, burnt sienna, but I wanted to add some touches of other colors in there too. So now I'll add a little bit of yellow to some of the pebbles, and after this also a few other colors like orange, and at the very end some violet. Sometimes I wipe off some of the paint with my fingers. I thought I had put a little bit too much yellow here and there. So now I took some cadmium red, mixed that into the yellow, which gives a nice orange, and add that to some of the pebbles. Might be a little close to the burnt sienna, because burnt sienna is really like an orangey brown, but you could still distinguish these pebbles from the burnt sienna, from the sand. And so now it's time to add a little bit of green. These colors really exist, as I mentioned earlier, on the beach for these pebbles. You don't want to go too extreme. I've done one once, and I did it on purpose, where I added a lot of bright colors to all these pebbles on the beach here for this photo. But I only did it once. That was a really piece that stood out from all the others. It looked like Easter eggs on the beach. And I did not want to do that this time. So that's the kelp, where I'm going to add some of that more saturated burnt sienna too. And then when that's done, I'm taking some violet, just a fun color. It makes it a little bit different. I like to add a little bit of this violet to some of the pebbles. A few at the bottom, and then a few more towards the middle of the photo, just to make it a little different, make it stand out. So all of these photos are always differently colored when I color them. So each photo is unique. And as you can see, that really now completes the piece. These are the last few pebbles that were still white. I think I may have left some white anyway, but don't quite remember. It's a fun piece. It's colorful, not too crazy. My piece that I call Pebbles at 27, with a variety of colors. And it's all done. 24 by 36 inch photo, black and white photo on canvas, hand colored with acrylic glazes and framed in a barnwood floater frame. I hope you liked the video, and I will see you next time.